Good morning, everybody. Welcome to class. This is Tuesday, November 22nd. And I think we'll start out with a very brief review of aggregate demand and short-run aggregate supply and long-run aggregate supply. So here we go. Here is the aggregate supply. Well, let's start with the aggregate demand curve. Price, here's the price level. GDP. The aggregate demand curve slopes downward just like that. Looks like a single good demand curve, but it is not sloping down for the same reasons. The wealth effect, interest rate effect, and the foreign exchange rate effect are reasons we can justify that thing sloping downward, even though we're talking about price level changes on this axis and instead of relative price changes. Okay. Well, what are the components of aggregate demand? Because the curve can shift if any one of those components changes. So we've got consumer spending, investment spending, government spending, and foreign spending, which we net out against imports. So we got net exports there. And if any of those change, the aggregate demand curve will shift. So if consumption spending goes up, the aggregate demand curve will shift to the right. If consumption spending goes down, aggregate demand will shift to the left. Okay? So same with investment spending, same with government spending, same with net exports. If any of those things shift, or any of those things change the aggregate demand, any of the components of aggregate demand change, the curve will shift. And that's the main thing we want to focus on, is what will make the curve shift. Now let's take a look at long-run aggregate supply. Long-run aggregate supply is independent of the price level. We have the price level here, and it doesn't matter if the price level is high or the price level is low. We've got the same long-run aggregate supply. Why is it independent of the price level? It's because of monetary neutrality, the proposition that says that nominal variables cannot have an impact on real variables. And since we're talking about actual supply of goods and services, we're talking real variables. They're measured in physical units. So what does impact or determine long-run aggregate supply? Well, capital, human capital and physical capital, the amount of labor available, technology, and natural resource availability. Now, if any of those change, it will have a shift or impact on long-run aggregate supply. It'll shift. So if there's more human capital, more physical capital, better technology, those things increase, natural resource availability, more labor available, that's going to shift this curve to the right. Okay? And now the short-run aggregate supply curve. It slopes up. Looks just like the single good supply curve, but for different reasons. What will make this shift is a change in expectations about inflation. When people's expectations change, this is going to shift up if the expected inflation's increases, shift down if inflationary expectations goes down. And this could be triggered by price changes throughout the economy, okay? So this is probably the trickiest one right here, but because we make plans based on what we expect the future to be, about what is the expected future price level. And when we change those expectations, we change our behavior. So we've got the short-run aggregate supply curve shifting up or down depending on if our inflationary expectations goes up or down.